Watford. Tearing down the motorway and heading south with the heavy, heavy eyes and the dry dirt mouth going South of Watford, South of Watford. Motorway's coming like a video game at 100 miles an hour. The old truck groans and the wheels complain, but I can't go any slower. South of Watford, South of Watford.
This is sound roll 2, I think the band's called Sigue Sigue Sputnik.
Just cut in really quick.
That's brilliant.
Next week sees the release of the first single by a new group, Sigue Sigue Sputnik.
5 dinky toys walk across the crossing. We didn't have permission, we just kind of did it on.
Theirs will be one of about 100 or so new singles launched next week, 80% of which will go straight into the dustbin without ever touching reviewers' turntables or getting radio airplay. But no one's going to ignore Sigue Sigue Sputnik. Their single is the climax of a cunning campaign which has made them the controversial talk of the music business and a hot tip for stardom. All this before anyone's even heard the record. Tonight we're going to look at the Sigue Sigue phenomenon to see what it takes to make a hit in '86, what lies behind the hype and the hairspray.
We're not some one-idea group who just happen to get lucky and happen to have a hit or happen to wake up one morning with, like, one great idea or happen to be discovered playing in some basement.
I've seen it before, but somebody who's 17 probably hasn't, and I hadn't seen the New York Dolls. Hadn't seen Mark Bolan in the full flush of life, so they're probably going, wow, you know, here we go.
Siamese, Lebanese, Chinese-speaking street TV.
It's the fun, pop, rock and roll game. That's what it's all about. And they are playing it for everything it's worth. And good luck to them. It's about time someone came out and said, we're into gratuitous sex and violence. Ha, ha, ha.
In less than 6 months, Sigue Sigue Sputnik have generated the sort of massive coverage in the music press usually reserved for big-name groups.
The colour of nighttime neon, a marriage of high-tech...
Can't last. It's cheap, nasty, ephemeral, wasteful and completely wonderful.
Die neuen Schocker auf die englische Musikszene.
Their outrageous posturing has brought them both scorn and adulation, as well as accusations of a massive hype.
Sigue Sigue Sputnik have cornered the market in big mouths and silly haircuts.
Punk outfit seen in a long time. Positively
perfumed orchid of the sound, growing on and feeding off the putrefying corpse of rock and roll.
In October, they signed to the Parlophone label at EMI for what's rumoured to be one of the biggest advances in record history.
£1 million is a lot to pay for a haircut.
For a novice band with a few obscure gigs to their credit, it's been a sensational start, a tribute to a highly successful strategy by the group's leader and mastermind, Tony James. One of the more successful bands of the punk era was Generation X. They split up 5 years ago, and their singer, Billy Idol, went to the States and there found greater fame and fortune, leaving behind his bass guitarist, Tony James, to figure out where it had all gone wrong for him. It was the start of the James master plan, to create the group of his dreams.
I spent a year sitting in cafes, because I had this romantic vision, like you read in the books, you know, how all those great groups in the 60s were formed in cafeterias. So I spent a year sitting in cafes all over London, waiting and figuring, well, you know, one day someone's going to walk past who looks like a star. Sid Vicious is a star. Didn't matter he couldn't play bass. Didn't matter he just stood there and plunked away at it because his attitude was so strong.
The search for star potential led Tony James to one Neil X. On looks and attitude, he passed with flying colours. And better still, at that time, he couldn't play the guitar.
Music has never worried me at all. You know, people look like stars. Learning to play is easy.
Neil and Tony joined forces to hunt for a singer. They found just what they were looking for in the basement of Kensington Market. Clothes designer and style warrior, Martin Degville.
And he sang, I think, probably the worst version of Bebop I've ever heard.
He was terrible, but he convinced us that he would be brilliant.
Personally, I mean, I want, you know, I want mega stardom.
And so we really, you know, carried on with this, that let's find two drummers, let's sit around, you know, and some kid will walk past the window that looks like a star drummer. Doesn't matter if he can't play. You know, much easier to teach someone to play drums than teach them to be thin.
And along came not one, but two potential drummers, both, of course, on the skinny side.
So we spent 2 years and they sat there drumming away, playing terrible, out of time, which I have to tell you was excruciating for me because I could already play. To listen, to be sitting in a room and day after day I'll be thinking, what am I doing here? I'm sitting in this room with 4 guys who can't play at all, and we're making this horrendous racket. You know, I could hear, like, Eddie Cochran, you know, kicking his gravestone down, saying, you know, you're murdering my songs, you know, give me a break.
Oh, well, come on, everybody, and let's get together tonight. I got some money in my jeans, and I'm really gonna spend it right.
After 2 years of murdering Elvis and Eddie Cochran numbers in the back bedroom, the by now musically competent and extravagantly coiffured members of Sigue Sigue Sputnik emerged and went public with their manifesto.
So what is Sigue Sigue Sputnik about? It's about, and I give you my standard reply, but, you know, Sigue Sigue Sputnik is about rockets, sex, televisions, home computers, BMX bikes, hiring video nasties. It's about films like Blade Runner, Clockwork Orange, Mad Max 2.
According to Tony James, pop had to reflect the tacky neon-lit glamour of a high-tech society. It was time for the moaning minis of social protest to move over.
A group has to represent what's exciting around in the world today, you know. Fantasy violence is exciting. What we're not talking about here is mugging your grandmother. What we're talking here is fantasy violence. You know, violence in movies like Rambo, where you think, you know, yeah, when you see the helicopter exploding in slow motion.
Tony James's provocative pitch for attention found a receptive audience in the music press. Starved of good stories in a dull year for music, they lapped up the rhetoric.
Newspaper-wise, I would have said that they're a very good copy. Tony James is a very, very good talker, and from my point of view, for somebody in my position, it's a godsend to find somebody who's got half a brain when they're in a pop group, and Tony James has probably got 2 brains the way he's working at the moment.
They know exactly how to persuade the boy writers of those music papers to be, you know, to go with what they're doing. It isn't necessarily a very difficult thing to seduce that area of the media, because they're desperate for anything that seems to be new and that seems to be something they can get stuck into. So from that point of view, it's been a good job. Well done.
Sigue Sigue Sputnik, in a sense, weren't innovative at all. They had no new ideas. They weren't fresh and they weren't naive, and they weren't sort of the future of pop music as we know it. What they did do was take all the sort of tricks, all the golden rules that had been established throughout the years about how to sell a band to a record company, and that's basically all they set out to do in the first place. And that was the sort of Malcolm McLaren school of selling bands, which is basically the first thing you do is you don't let too many people see the band.
Peter Powell, the best sound in Britain.
Having tickled the fancy of the music press, Sigue Sigue found that their tactics of playing hard to get when it came to performing were also beginning to pay off. Secret gigs in obscure venues were adding to the mystique.
The normal course of events, when a new band's launched, the first thing you do is get 3 or 4 tracks of the music. With Sigue Sigue Sputnik, nothing like that at all. And in fact, I spent about 6 months trying to track down a recording of any sort of them, and it was totally impossible.
Sigue Sigue Sputnik on Polaroid.
For the lucky few who managed to track them down, there was the thrill of feeling a member of an elite. Peter Paul has documented the Sputniks and their fans from the start, inviting and getting their comments on his photos.
It started off very much as a private party, which went public, which sounds like such an old cliche, but then again, rock and roll is, isn't it? I am interested in fan mania. I'm interested in their fashion. And they've been through so many influences. They've been through the whole gender bender thing, so they're so much more confident with things like their sexuality. And it's like a fantasy. The whole thing about Sigue Sigue Sputnik is like a fantasy which has suddenly turned into reality, probably through the help of the press, because the press have had no focus. There's been nothing new.
Hot on the trail of the fans and the music press came the record company executives, anxious not to miss out on what could be big bucks in '86. Tony James was ready and waiting.
The whole secret is, don't tell them anything. Don't let them know what you're doing. Don't let them come and see the group live. If they phone up and say, can we listen to your demo tape? We hear you have this fantastic promo that everybody's talking about. You say, yes, we have. Can we hear it? No, you can't. Record companies are wise to it if you haven't got anything going for you, you know. But if they see the act, you know, playing gigs, and they know about it, and they see us walking around in clubs, looking like the most exciting rock and roll group they'd ever seen, and yet they're unable to hear a tape, it makes them more intrigued. Of course they're wise to it, but it's the way it works.
I mean, everybody sort of says that they're a big con, that they're a big hype, but all pop music is a con and a hype in a sense. And the beauty of the way they've done it is that they seem at the moment to be the victors. They've taken total control of everything, and the record companies have fallen for it.
Is there a sort of Malcolm McLaren influence?
I've certainly got 1 or 2 taped interviews of Malcolm on video.
Oh.
So a number of major record companies were interested in signing the act. And Martin and I went and saw all of them and had numerous lunches, and you can tell quite a lot about where they take you for lunch with record companies. And met the people in all the various companies. Played our demo video.
Which, when I saw it, I just thought it was the best thing I've ever seen. I thought it was absolutely staggering.
Played them 1 song, and that was all. Didn't leave them a tape.
That's when all the real trouble started.
Didn't give them a copy. And, you know, said, thanks very much for meeting you, and, you know, perhaps we'll call you.
He just said I had to make up my mind there and then, which was a very good way of getting me excited, wound up.
We had our lawyer by then, and as with all the other things we've done, we auditioned lawyers before we chose the one we wanted.
Probably the most legendary lawyer in the music business.
You know, and we got to the stage where they said, you know, we'd really, really like to sign this group. You know, what sort of money do you want? And we'd always say, well, you know, I'm not really interested in money, really. You know, it's just working with the right people, you know, which excited them immensely. And we sent in our lawyer to ask for more money than they'd ever dream anyone would dare to ask.
And the amount of money he asked, I nearly went berserk. I could have... I could have hit him, you know. It's just, I couldn't believe it. But I calmed down after that, and...
You wouldn't care to tell us how much it was, would you?
No, I couldn't discuss that, no.
How much was he asking?
Do you know, I can't remember.
No. How much was the deal worth?
I'm not prepared to tell you that. It was quite a substantial deal. If we don't ever sell a Sigue Sigue record, the deal was a lot of money. If we sell lots of Sigue Sigue records, then the deal was a great deal. That's the way of things.
I mean, the sort of joke within sort of the paper and within the sort of media is, you know, that Sigue Sigue Sputnik have done damn fine, and the worst thing they could possibly do now is put a record out, because it could never match up to what their people's expectations. But so I heard this sort of tale that they actually sort of went in to EMI and said, OK, yeah, we're perfectly prepared to do a single if you get sort of Prince or Bowie to produce it, which is wonderful, whether it's true or not.
Sadly for Sigue Sigue, neither Prince nor Bowie were available to give the energy of Love Missile F-111 commercial polish, but that didn't deter them. Ever ambitious, Sigue Sigue turned to someone who was not only a superstar producer of hit records, but also an Oscar-winning film composer, Giorgio Moroder.
Well, it's a combination of electronic driving bass line and drums and that kind of a wild guitar. I liked the fact that they used sound effects from videos, from movies, and it's kind of a very unique sound. With the combination of video, it's going to be great.
You just draw the drums when you want, right?
I personally think or it's a big success or it's a big flop. It's probably nothing in between.
If they'd got someone like Karlheinz Stockhausen or Michael Nyman or something that would have kicked them out, so they would have taken a boogie music and given it to this kind of person who's got a different attitude towards music, then, you know, we could have all got a little more excited. But it's Moroder, and in a sense, they were already starting to join the queue of bands up for people's attention, you know.
From what I remember of their sound, I came out with just a wall of really intense noise. How he's going to convert that into a tune, I can't work out. I think it could be interesting. If anyone could do it, George Moroder will do it. So again, well done to them. Another good move.
The great thing about it is, and I have to say this, every time I walk through these hallowed portals of EMI, I always hear the words...
part of history.
No, I always hear the words of John Rotten ringing in my ears. EMI, an unlimited supply. Seems rather ironic. Here we go again.
With 5 weeks to go before the release of the single, Tony James and the group's publicist, Magenta, call on EMI to discuss the next stage in the campaign, giving the record sleeve Sigue Sigue appeal.
And I had this idea that I want to make the record seem kind of international, global. I think for Sigue Sigue Sputnik, we want to get away from this idea of that kind of London group, you know, the general thing, especially with punk, it was all meant to be Shepherd's Bush or Brixton. But we want to be seen as kind of international and appealing to kind of, you know, Japan and places like that.
Okay. So look, so here they are. This was that's the Russian one.
Let's just look at that variations.
Yeah.
Full variations. Right. Yeah. I always liked EMI right from the get-go. I felt EMI represented to me that pillar of English society. You know, if you ask your mum, you know, what record companies have you heard of? They always say EMI. You know, they haven't really heard of Elektra. You know, they think Elektra make Hoovers or you know, or cookers or something. But EMI, I kind of liked that pillar of English society, and you know, and they seemed hungry to be involved in a group that was exciting and new and maybe a little dangerous, you know. And I felt the people there actually understood what we were talking about and were genuinely excited about the ideas of the group, not just as the fact that the group might sell a few more units or sell a few more records.
Videos de horror is quite nice for video nasties. And in German, it's ultraviolet is really... Video nice is video cassette and brutal. And ultraviolet is ultra... Go, whatever that is, got Waltig kite, which is really nice.
They have a way with words, don't they? Are there any great German poets?
I don't think so.
Just a few.
They're obviously keen to take things to extremes in some directions. Are you worried that that's going to get you into trouble as well as them?
I don't think... I mean, it's a difficult thing for us because, in that sense, you have a band that is energetic, to a point musically aggressive, have some very strong visual ideas which we're transferring into video, not in a normal pop promo format. And it's not something that we would want to do as a record company, to compromise how they see themselves or how they want to be.
See, what we don't want to have for this group is those kind of the pop promo where you see, like, you know, here's the group plunking away in some set someone's built that's got big pink triangles at the back.
So you're not really interested in seeing the band perform at all?
Don't want that performance video. No, because, you know, they all look like that. Here they're on stage and all the audience are going like this, you know, simultaneously.
True to form, Tony James is tackling the conventional pop promo in an unorthodox way. With Hugh Simmons as producer, the plan is first to make a 60-second trailer, a grandiose way of informing the world of the momentous arrival of Sigue Sigue Sputnik, followed by a no-holds-barred promo in which the music will take second place.
What we want to see in this trailer or promo, we want to see 2 minutes of high-tech sex, gratuitous violence, and generally things exploding in slow motion.
You realise this might not get shown?
I'm not really worried about that. I mean, I think, you know, if you've seen the demo promo that we've made, which is sections of Clockwork Orange, Blade Runner, Mad Max, you know, Martin's porn films, stuff like that. I want to try and create something that gives that effect.
I mean, will that get shown on telly?
Yes, obviously, when it comes down to it, if I'm under contract to a record company to produce some material which goes out on television, then obviously it must be showable. Otherwise...
No, I think EMI will be quite happy with the fact that it won't be showable.
You mean that they might actually pay to have a film made that they know it can never be shown?
Mm.
Well, why would they do that?
Because they're so excited about the concept of it, and I sell it to them so great. They're going to give me the money to do it. We have never compromised from day one, whether it's compromised by getting real musicians instead of people who can't play, you know, or going to a record company and taking any kind of compromise in contracts. You know, it has to be the most exciting thing. I have to be able to put on my promo and think, I think this is the most exciting thing. You know, this is like my wildest dream, the promo I always wished I could be involved in making. And it has to be that. I have to be able to turn to my best friend and say, this is the wildest thing, you've got to look at that. Not show it to him and say, well, I know we had to take all the good bits out with a record company. You know, don't want to be involved in that.
With the imminent release of the single and a possibly highly controversial promo, it's a nail-biting time for both Sigue Sigue and for EMI. Maybe EMI will wish they'd learned from the lessons of their brief and expensive brush with the Sex Pistols and steered clear of smart-talking operators with big ideas. Conceivably, the Sputniks will go into orbit and join the ranks of the legendary EMI money spinners of another age, whom they joyfully parodied at their Abbey Road gig. Either way, this highly entertaining band will continue to make good copy for the music press, who haven't had such a good story since Johnny Rotten & Co. told Bill Grundy where to get off.
What they're doing really is the only thing that pop music really can effectively do, as far as I'm concerned, which is to give you your own kind of living movie. They live out all the fantasies that we would like to, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if they make millions and millions of pounds, I'll be very, very happy.
The question is it the buzz or the belief that the EMI have for Sigue Sigue Sputnik? I think it's the buzz, and the buzz sometimes pays off.
You know that as soon as they make a record, they're going to go through those awful routines that everyone goes through. I mean, I've even said it, I wish they'd split up, and that's a terrible kind of defeatism in a way. So, you know, in another sense, I'd love the group to be the greatest thing that ever happened, but keep and in fact make better and worse their level of hysteria.
The best thing that could happen is they will die in a plane crash, you know, but it won't happen, you know, so there you go. I mean, they don't want to be legends, they want to be rich, different thing altogether. As far as I'm concerned, I'd like them to be legends. You know?
Now, it's been suggested that because of the enormous anticipation that you've aroused, any record can never really fulfill it, and that in a way the best thing that could happen to the whole idea is if you all went down in a plane.
Crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've heard it.
I haven't figured out how to make money out of that, though. That's the only trouble.